All right, good day, everyone. You are tuning in to another exciting show with your host, the granddaughter in the community, known as Senior Talk with Clara Hubbard, the number one resource and information show for people getting better with age. Woo! Let me tell you, I am so excited for this show. First of all, I must say to our guest, thank you for your service. This young lady is a female veteran woman business owner. When you hear her bio, because I don't talk about people bios, I let them introduce themselves because she is doing it all. She is the proprietor owner of Nancy's Home Care. That's nancysHomeCare.com. But also, what is more exciting, she is a woman of service, even beyond her time in the armed forces. So without any delay, let me just welcome our guest today, my sister, Miss Felice. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody tuning in across the world. Let me tell you, you are going to enjoy this show. It's going to be impactful for our community. You're welcome to put your comments in our sections on Facebook Live as well as YouTube. And for those who are listening to this on radio, please, we'll get back to you. Don't be afraid to give us a call. We want to answer your questions. This topic is critical for our community. So, welcome to Senior Talk. How are you this beautiful day?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
It is my pleasure. So, before we go any further, as I said, I want to say to you and to everyone, I make it a stance when I go across the city of Chicago, the country, and I see someone with a hat, anything that resembles that they may have served in the armed forces, I ask everyone at that time, stop wherever you are and say, thank you for your service. It is critical. It goes a long way. And I got a big something that I'm working on too, because some states are now making some of their restaurants, they reserve spots for our armed services.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, yeah, we'll talk about that another day, but that's one of my plights. I think our armed service men and women should have a designated area when they pull up to a restaurant and spend their dollars. But we'll get into that. So I don't want to take up any time because we got a lot of ground to cover. Again, welcome to Senior Talk, and tell everyone who you are. And then we're going to talk about, really, I want to know about your experience in the armed services. But go ahead. Welcome to Senior Talk. Take it away, sister. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. My name is Felice Searles. So, as Clara mentioned, I am a 20-year Air Force retired veteran. So, I enlisted in the service right after high school at the grand old age of 19 years old. And I spent the first half of my life serving in the armed forces. It was a wonderful experience. It taught me leadership. It taught me just how to become a better form of me. While I was in the service, I got a chance to serve others. I was a recruiter the last 10 years of my service, so I got a chance to help others with career choices as it related to the Air Force. I really enjoyed it. I traveled the world while I was in the service. I lived in multiple cities, multiple states. I also spent some time overseas as well. I lived in Germany for a couple of years. So at the age of like 21 years old, I was living in Germany. It was an amazing experience. I got a chance to travel all over Europe. If anyone familiar with being in the service, you know about the Autobahn in Germany. So I got in my vehicle, did about 120 miles. Don't tell anybody. It was unlimited speed. So you could I didn't go that fast. But no, It was really a great experience though. I got a chance to drive to Paris and go to England and go to Switzerland, Austria. And then I also spent some time in Japan. It's an island called Okinawa, Japan. Yeah. So I got a chance to spend 4 years over there. It was on an island. So I got a chance to experience that island life as well. But had an amazing time, met some wonderful people that, thanks to Facebook, thanks to social media, I'm still friends with now. We're still in contact. And then came back to the States. That's when I became a recruiter. I started in North Carolina where I recruited there. Just basically sharing, telling everyone about my Air Force journey. And from there, went to California, spent some time in California, doing the same thing, but at a different level, basically. And then my final stop was in Milwaukee, where I became a manager. So I had a team of recruiters that I was responsible for. And then after that, I retired. So I retired in 2014. Then after retirement, I was unsure about my life. And I decided to use my post 9/11 GI Bill to go back to school. I got my bachelor's while I was in the Air Force. So I got a bachelor's in management. So I decided, since I was still undecided with my life, I decided to go back to school, and I got a master's degree in HR. And it was after that where this journey, and we can talk about that next, but where, that kind of positioned me for where I'm at today.
Absolutely. Well, let's go back a little bit, because you said at the age of 19. Why was the armed forces an option for you, as opposed to not going directly into a 4-year institution? Why was the armed forces that choice for you?
When I was in high school, personally, I felt like it was a challenge. I'm gonna be real. I'm gonna be honest. It was a challenge for me. I was a C student at the time. And plus, I didn't want to go directly to school. I don't know. I wanted to travel. I always had a desire. I grew up in Chicago. So I made a complete 360 where I'm back now in Chicago, but I started in Chicago. And at the time, I just wanted to travel. I wanted to see the world. So what happened, it was my junior year of high school, actually. And this Air Force recruiter came to speak to the junior and senior class about careers. And I never had a desire, nothing against the Army or the other branches of service, but I just, at the time, I wasn't thinking about going into the Army, going into the Marine, going into the Navy. And this was during the first Desert Shield Wars was. So, of course, we were in my junior year of high school, we were at war. So, of course, I wasn't really thinking about the military, but when my recruiter came, he actually became my recruiter. When he came to the high school, I don't know, he just said some things that resonated with me. He talked about travel. And I wanted to travel. I'd never left Chicago, never been on an airplane, didn't know anything outside of Chicago, never left. I grew up on the west side, never left the west side of Chicago. So he mentioned his travels and talked about living in Germany, living in other countries. And that just really intrigued me. And then he talked about the careers you can go into. I never thought about the service like that. I mean, I was still young. I was 16 years old. But he talked about some of the different things you can do while in the service. So I remember after his presentation, I just went up to him and I told him I wanted to learn more at the age of like 16 years old. But of course, I wasn't old enough to join. And he gave me information, but because I was 16 and I couldn't enlist, he didn't really, I guess he kind of put me in his all others, All right. So he didn't really want to entertain me a lot. But anyways, my senior year of high school, I actually reached back out to him. And really that conversation started, my senior year, I was, pretty much had enough credits to graduate. So I was only at school for half a day. And I worked part-time at a Burger King. I lived on the west side, but I went to high school in Argo, Illinois, Summit, Illinois, rather. It's Argo Community High School. Okay. So I remember I was working at Burger King in the evening, and it was just me and the supervisor at the time. And she was really the godsend. She encouraged me really at that point, because I knew I wanted to do it, but I didn't really make any steps to go forward with it. I was a senior about to graduate from high school. So one day we were just talking. We were both sitting at the register. I'd never forget. And she asked me what I was going to do. And I said, well, I'm not really sure. I think I'm going to go to college. Because, everybody at that time was going to Kennedy King College.
That's right.
And I said, I think I'm going to go to Kennedy King. Hey. And so she just had that real talk with me, to be honest. And she just, she's like, you don't want to waste your time. You want to have clear-cut goals. Because she knew after asking me a bunch of questions that I really didn't have anybody ask me, that I was really unsure what I wanted to do. And I knew at that point, deep within my heart, I really wanted to travel. Sure. At this point, the war was over, and I just knew I wanted to get out of Chicago. Believe it or not, I wanted to move somewhere where it was nice and warm and sunny.
Let me say, you on my street. Not exactly did I serve in the armed forces, but like you, I graduated from high school and started off my first month or so at Olive Harvey. Okay. And then I went away to Southern University in Louisiana. But it was just getting out of Chicago, having an experience, and interacting with other nationalities, and just having another experience for myself and for my life. But let's go back to this. Okay, you're now, you served, and you were talking about the things that made you really stick to it. You learned the discipline.
Yes.
And then you talked about the woman who came into your life And we love people who we sometimes it's not always our family members. There are people on the outside of our lives that see us more regularly sometimes who see something in us. And the fact that she stepped into your life and said, hey, and that was an alternative for you, that you have now a quality of life, and now you can go and see the world. But here's the thing that you touched on that people don't understand. There are more positions in the services, the armed services, than just being on the front line.
Exactly.
You have people who have to count the money.
Yes.
You have people who are, just it's so many branches. And I think that's a great option for someone who's tuning in. You may want to consider the armed forces because there are other branches of things. I mean, it takes everything to make it work. Somebody is a nurse, somebody is a doctor, somebody is a therapist. There's so many things that come along with it. So you found your niche and it made, a great difference to you. So I'm thinking people always assume that you have to be on the front line.
Right.
And, I have a friend who's now, he's an accountant pretty much. He works with payroll. But he's still a part of the armed services. His part is important because we all like to get paid on time.
Absolutely.
And somebody has to manage that, So that's a great option. And I think people want to consider that. Young men and women who are at home or looking for an alternative. And then you have the income now through, you said, the GI Bill to go to school.
Absolutely.
And let somebody else pay for it. How about that?
I got a bachelor's and I got a master's, and I don't owe $1 in student loans. So it was, and like you said, the discipline piece for me, and being a recruiter, it just taught me transitioning as an entrepreneur. A lot of the skills that I learned, the skill sets that I got from serving in the military has transitioned into where I'm at today. And I reflect back and I feel I'm a person of faith. And I really feel that was everything from my first half of my life, as I like to say, the first half has really helped me into becoming this entrepreneur and just this better person. The skills that I learned, just being able to, get up and have that motivation, which is so needed, that discipline. And also it opened up a lot of other resources for me. There's things that I have access to as a veteran.
Yes, ma'am.
That, as a business owner, but a veteran owner, that, that has helped me as well. So definitely my time was well spent. I enjoyed it. I have no regrets about it. And I know it really helped form the Felice that I am today.
Boom. I love that. So let's talk about this. Because we definitely got to get into the meat of our conversation. But we just want to get the intro because you will be revisiting us sometime in July because our time will not be over. We'll tell everyone about that new thing coming up in July. But let's talk about when you went into the Army, when you went into the Air Force.
Yes.
As a woman.
Yes.
African American. What was your experience? A lot of women are not have different stories of their time in the armed forces. So what was your experience as an African American woman, 19, 20 years old, in the armed forces from Chicago West Side? Boom, boom, boom. Let's talk about that.
Yes, going back to what you just said, I belong to a veteran organization right now, Women on Vet Group. And I just talking to the other ladies, I hear the different stories. This is Felice's story. It was a great experience, coming in, basic training. It was not easy. I'm not going to sit here and say it was a walk in the park.
Right.
But a lot of it was more mental, I think. I was 19. I lived with mom and dad, never, just had kind of a shelter, didn't know nothing. And of course, going to basic training where you got all walks of life, people from all over there. It was definitely... I was nervous. It wasn't easy initially, but being the person of faith, it took for me a lot of prayer. I prayed a lot just for God to help me. One thing I always said when I went into basic, I did not want to go home the same way. I came. I wanted to finish it so that I can that confidence. I wanted to finish. I didn't want to end up get kicked out or going back home and feeling like, not saying if you're not successful that you're a failure, but for me, it's just that's where that willpower and that strength and that determination kind of started. So got through basic without getting, they call it washed back, right? You know, if you have to repeat a week or two. I never got washed back. I never had to repeat, and then I graduated on time. My first duty station, it was tough. Okay, I told you I wanted to join because I wanted to go somewhere where it was sunny, right? My thought was Florida, Texas, somewhere where it was nice and warm. So my first duty station was in North Dakota, where it was like, you think Chicago was cold? It got to 90 below in the winter time. So at first I was like, yes, I'm not exaggerating, Claire. I was like, oh my God, is this like a punishment?
Right.
But let me tell you though, I met some really beautiful people. I really did. And it was because it wasn't a lot of us there, people of color. We built, it was a community. And we did, you know, there was a lot of new airmen, you know, brand new in the Air Force. And it was a big shock to all of us.
Yeah.
We were all young, brand new, right? 18, 19, 20 years old, all, you know, like, oh my God, where am I? Why am I here? But we used to go to Winnipeg together. So like weekends, we would all get together. It would be like 15 of us. And we'll all carpool to Winnipeg, Canada. It was really fun. So for me, my experience, it was a good time. Now, you know, for the most part, I had great supervisors who encouraged me, who mentored me. I mean, but then again, there were, you know, some people who didn't have my best interests at heart. So it was kind of both, but my experience, it was really a great experience. It really was. I had goals. I think that's the key thing. And when I was a recruiter, I always told you need to have a goal. That's with anything you do in life. If you go to college, right? If you don't have goals when you go to school, you're part of your way out of college. You end up getting out of school with $100,000 worth of debt. If you go there just thinking I'm going to have fun and not really focus on my studies or not have an end in mind. Yeah. So for me, when I served, I don't know, God gave me this as a 19-year-old. But I had a goal. I knew this is what I want. I didn't want to leave the service without at a minimum, my bachelor's degree. That was my first goal. I got the bachelor's, and then I said, I want to travel more. I want to go to Germany. I want to go to Japan. So I accomplished that. So it was really at about 9 years. And I said, and it was time for me to re-enlist because you don't re-enlist. It's not like you come in, you just do 20. You do a full 6-year enlistment. Sure. So every 4 or 6 years you get to enlist. And it was probably year 9 where I had to make that big decision whether or not, you know, I had to either, you know, it was at that time where I can get out, or I knew after 10 years, you basically at that hump and you might as well finish out. So if I was going to get out at that point, that was the mindset. If you stay in after 10, you might as well finish. So I had a big decision to make, but I wanted to finish it because at that point I wanted to it was more of having that sense of accomplishment for me. And that's why I kind of stayed the course. Plus I figured since I'm serving, I might as well, you know, get a retirement at the end. You know, you get a pension when you retire after 20 years. So I wanted that pension.
What a benefit. What a benefit. Absolutely. So and I can see where our program is going because we do want to talk about your services, but I just wanted to also touch on first, since you will be coming back, we just want to talk about you as a woman business owner and a veteran. I mean, that is key. Our second program, we're gonna mention it a little bit, you know, before we go, but it's critical that women find their place in this community that we live in. So here you are with the experience of being a successful woman, veteran business owner. How was that opportunity placed in your hand when some veterans come home and don't have employment? They're looking for employment. How did you get this jewel in your hands to become Nancy's Home Care?
So, as I said, when I retired, I was unsure, honestly. When I retired, what I wanted to do, I had no idea I was going to be an entrepreneur. I'm gonna be honest. My goal was I wanted to go to school because I wasn't quite ready to go back to work. First off, but also I believe in taking advantage of opportunities. You know, I had this money set aside for me that I can go back to school, but I wanted to figure out what I wanted to do. So the Nancy's Home Care came about. I was about done with school, but at the same time, I remember I had a family member who had cancer. And my mom actually was her primary caregiver. But because I was home, my mom would always call upon me to assist her, help her with her appointments, help her, do different things. Because my auntie was single. And she eventually passed away for cancer. But I remember I was probably 2 or 3 classes shy of graduating with my master's. And I was just talking to another friend. I was just sharing that, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do next. But I always knew I had this in my heart that I wanted to do something where I can serve others. I don't know. I always had a passion for serving others. And I told her that. I wanted to be able to serve. I want to be able, I can give back, help someone. I didn't know what it looked like. So she brought up home care. Never heard of home care. I went into the military after high school. The military was all I knew. I didn't know that there was actually a thing called home care.
Yeah, real talk. Right.
So after thinking about it, I prayed about it, I did some research. I don't know. It's just, I knew this is what I wanted to do.
Yeah, let me just interject. You just said something so key. A lot of us for many years have been caring for our loved ones and did not know that there was a term associated with it. How many years have we been caring for our loved ones and did not know we were administering home care? Never knew there was a term and that you could get paid to do it. That's a whole other subject, but that's critical. And it makes a lot of sense. So who is Nancy?
That's my mom.
All right, fantastic.
That's my mom. Yes. She was my aunt's caregiver, and just, and I think the desire, the name came about just watching how my mom cared for my auntie. My aunt, she was single, no kids. She was really, my mom was all she really had. And just, and she, just how my mom really helped her in her time of need, just inspired me to, when I thought of the agency, what I wanted, the vision I wanted for my agency, I wanted an agency where there's compassion, there's warmth, there's love, there's like this, like family, feel to it. And I just, for one, the name Nancy, I said, that sounds like a really cool name. But then my mom, like I said, she is all that to me. Yeah. So that's where Nancy's Home Care came about.
That's awesome. What I really appreciate, honestly, in the work that we do is that, and I tell people, it doesn't take a whole lot to make a difference.
Doesn't. But
I know just being in this industry of serving others, you can't lose. You gain so much. So we're going to talk about this. We got a couple of more minutes, and then we're going to make our show in July strictly for this particular subject. Nancy's Home Care provides compassionate and dependable non-medical home care services.
Yes.
But let me tell you, friends and family, we have a specialist with us. Alzheimer's and dementia care.
Yes.
That is a ever-ending topic in our community. First of all, rarely do we see an African-American Alzheimer and dementia trained specialist. And then there's also a regimen of that I believe sometimes we have to talk to people that look like us.
Yes.
To get a full understanding. So let's talk about a little bit the Alzheimer's and dementia care. Plus you got CDTT something /CP. You got so many. You've taken the time to make yourself as viable to the community. So I'm super excited. And I can tell you this, I pray to God because what our show we're doing now is we're taking the top disparities and we're getting the experts that look like us to serve us. That's where I start and end. That's where it starts and ends. And I like who I like, let's be clear. So a woman of God, a woman on a mission, having had the experience, you from the west side, I'm from the south side. But we're coming together to build a bridge because we're going to be on all sides and we're going to be here to serve you. So let's talk about the dementia and Alzheimer's care because there are two different words. People want to say, well, I got what the seniors say, I got the sugar, not the sugar. They got for dementia, they call it it's some tag they use, but it's regarding.
I know it used to be called senile. You know, I remember growing up, people refer to, you know, grandma senile.
Mm-hmm. Right.
How, you didn't say Alzheimer's, you just said grandma senile.
Right. So you got a couple of things that we're going to tag on this time. Well, let me give everyone this. I have the flyer. It's on my website. I'm just so excited. If you're listening and you know that you can hear, you want to talk further with Felice, tell her that you heard about it on Senior Talk with Clara Hubbard. I failed to put the number on the scrolling, but it's on our website. It's 773-966-3003. Let me tell you, specialize in Alzheimer's and dementia training. Care for individuals with risk falls who are at risk for falls, stroke and cancer care. Really, we got it all right here. And she has a service. So how long have you been operating Nancy's Home Care?
3.5 years.
3.5 years. And you've covered a lot of traction 24/7. That's a lot, including weekends. But let's talk about this dementia training that you now can offer to the community. And as I said, when you come back in July or next month, we're going to dive into the real meat of that. We just introduced to one of our new community partners, Miss Felice. So you know she is the owner and proprietor of Nancy's Home Care. So she's one of our new Senior Talk leads in service, presentations, seminars. She can come to your red hat, your blue hat, purple hat, pink hat, you name it, because everybody got a hat. Everybody doing something, but let's educate our community. Let's not be afraid to get the information that we need. But let's talk about your Alzheimer's and dementia care and your training that you can offer to the community.
So so that came about as an agency. I found myself taking care of quite a bit of patients, clients with Alzheimer's, dementia. And, you know, just, of course, when they called on me, it was usually when the disease was in the latter stages, where they were, you know, wandering and, you know, really needed that hands-on support. So that really, you know, I don't know, I'm an inquisitive person. When I'm faced with a challenge, I want to learn more. So I wanted to learn, how can I be a better service to not just the person that I'm there or my agency is called on to take care of, but to the family member as well. Because a lot of times they're like, what do I do? You know, mom is wondering, mom is combative. What do I do? Yeah. So that encouraged me to go to school. You know, I actually went through a program to become certified as the Alzheimer's dementia care trainer. So with my certification, I can do two things. So one of the things is I can also teach other healthcare professionals just about the disease process. That's one phase. But what I really want to do, what my vision is to educate family members on Alzheimer's dementia. First off, you know, what it looks like. So oftentimes we don't know what it looks like. Well, we see changes and we just, you know, 70, 80 years old, we just think, okay, they just, you know, they're getting old, they just losing their mind, right? That's what we normally say. That's not really knowing that this can develop into something even greater. So what I want to do with my training is first educate on the signs. What are some of those signs that, you know, that would make you realize, like, okay, something is really wrong here. I may need to have mom or dad checked out, because the thing with Alzheimer's, it's a progressive disease and it's not going to get better. And as the disease progresses, one of the things people don't realize, when that person gets to the latter stages, it's like their body starts literally breaking down. Sure. They not only lose their memory, but they lose body functions. They, you know, they start wandering. They forget how to do activities of daily living we do every day. And at the end, most times they're going to need 24/7 care. And people don't realize that, and they don't prepare for that. So one of the things I want to do is first talk about those signs. What does it look like? If you have a loved one, your mom, your dad, you notice some subtle change. Now, sometimes it could just be memory loss, right? You forget your key. I do it all the time, right? You leave your key somewhere, you forget where you left it, right? Right. But what does it look like when you may want to, like, you know, sound the alarm and take mom, dad to the clinic to get a diagnosis? But also my training would consist of, once you get that diagnosis, right, you got that form, okay, mom has Alzheimer's or what have you, what's next? I talk about having a dementia care plan. I think it's very important to be prepared, to have a plan, so that, you know, how are we going to handle this? Right now, mom doesn't need care. However, in 6 months. It depends on the person. Sometimes people can live 20 years with the disease, or sometimes it can happen quickly where things can go from A to Z in a matter of 2-3 months. So either way, what type of plan will we have in place? So my training also talks about having that dementia care plan, and just, how to also, handle, or how to really interact, because sometimes, the disease, once they get to that latter mid stage of it, they can sometimes, that loved one can be very combative. They can cuss you out. They can throw stuff at you. How do you deal with it? So those are some other things
you on time with it. You got me. You really got me. Because I understand clearly that we as African Americans, sometimes we are so in denial.
Talk about.
We and I believe that sometimes our family members, we are so in denial.
Yes.
And we are afraid. If nothing else, we have to participate and call and get the information needed, because we try to self-diagnose. Don't try to self-diagnose your loved one. Just don't do it.
I think we got some connection challenges now.
Let's see.
Okay, I hear you now.
Okay, so let's do this. Since we did have a fruitful show, I'm not going to change the rules of the road. We're going to come back. We're going to select a day in the top of July, whenever your schedule is open, and we're going to stretch it out and try to make it more like a town hall, to have people ask questions while we're together. I know this is untapped in our community. There are many organizations that are working, but we as African Americans need to participate and get the information that we need. So let's not deny ourselves that opportunity. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the chance. I'm going to close out our program. Everyone, our special guest today was Miss Felice. She is the proprietor, owner, veteran business owner of nancyshomecare.com. I ask you, please, if you have a question or comment, please call the Senior Talk office at 312-428-6919, 312-428-6919, or please call Nancy's Home Care. Follow her on Facebook. She has a great Facebook page. Follow her website, which is nancyshomecare.com. Also, free in-home consultation. Learn about the services. Give her a call at 773-966-3003. Well, it's been a pleasure to introduce our new community partner, Nancy's Home Care. We have much ground to cover. Please remember that if you need anything that you heard about this broadcast and would like it sent to you via email, or better yet, go to Senior Talk Media and go to our page, dive all through our website, and you'll find this information available to you. So it's our pleasure to serve you today. And I will always say, in complete darkness, we are all the same. It is only our knowledge and wisdom that separate us. Everyone have a great day, and we will see you next time for Senior Talk with Clara Hubbard. Take care.
Yeah.